Your Inner Goddess with me, your host, Sarah Joyce Hindle. And today I've got another guest with me, the lovely Miki Yamada. And we're getting raw, vulnerable, honest, and speaking our truth. We are sharing bits of our journey so that you can do the same. We're talking vulnerability, we're talking healing, feeling, and how to step into your calling. I hope you enjoy it as much as we enjoyed making it. Let's dive in. And here's Miki. Welcome.
Hi, Sarah.
Your energy is just wonderful. It's just calming and nourishing. I love it.
Oh, I'm so glad to be here with you.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. It's been so long as well. We've tried to pen in this podcast for months now, haven't we?
Yes.
And we've had many things in our way, but we're here today, and I'm really pleased.
Me too.
Awesome. So we kind of just connected in a Facebook group, didn't we? And we had this coffee chat, which is just essentially a Zoom call for people who feel like they might connect. And I felt like we pretty well connected, didn't we? And I think, and obviously for the listeners here who are like, well, okay, that's great, you connected, I don't know what she does, we're going to sort of explain what it is in a minute. But I think Miki's energy and the way she sees the world just has me in awe. And I think having done a session with her as well, it was just wonderful to see that magic in action. And I know in the bio I mentioned what she does, but I would love Miki to explain it in her own words, to sort of welcome herself onto the show, if it were. Yes. So what is it you do? Tell my listeners what it is you do and how you sort of started the business.
There's so many things that I think about as you were kind of telling the people listening to this podcast about how we met, but I'll leave that for later. But the work that I do is I guide leaders into living their calling, which is embodying their calling through releasing the emotions that no longer serve them. So a lot of the times, a lot of people have these emotions that like really weigh them down, and they don't consciously realize how much it impacts their life, and it impacts the way they live the life that they desire. So yes, a lot of the things that I do is around feelings work, not the strategy, but the emotions, knowing why the emotions exist, and just releasing, letting them go through a lot of the practices that I've used for myself. Yeah. And that I've received through my own journey. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that's it. I think we can be, especially as entrepreneurs, as creatives, as leaders, we can be so disconnected from our bodies and the feelings, and we're so driven by the results and the process and making things quicker, making things, easier, making things have, hit and reply faster, and just quickening all the things, when really what we need to do is slow down and sort of go, okay, well, what's going on with my body when I'm thinking about this part of my business, and what's going on, how am I feeling with this thing that I'm doing right now? And I think our bodies hold the answers quite a lot of the time, don't they?
And it's so like interesting for me, like how like the body, like feelings come up in like our body sensations, no? Like when we feel a certain way and the feeling is not aligned with what we want, like our bodies start showing symptoms. It's like headaches, back pain. Like a lot of the people I worked with also have like issues with like their bodies are showing signs like fatigue, exhaustion, overwhelmed, like you know. So yeah.
Yeah, and when you said that as well, it reminded me of a friend of mine who she's a teacher. She teaches young children, sort of 4 to 11, and she carries a lot of stress in her body. and she works a lot of long hours. She's very committed, very
Mm.
passionate. I love her to death. And the thing that I see a lot is the stress sort of manifesting in her body as like physical things like ulcers, tummy ache, headaches and things, but also, like you say, that exhaustion, that sort of constant fatigue that you feel like you can't catch up from. And I see that so much in her, and it's one of the things we fall back into, you know, you go conversations with your friends over coffee and how are you, and you know, you when you're on that close level with somebody, the truth comes out,
Yeah.
doesn't it? How are you
Yeah.
really? It's like, well, not so good, this, that, and the other, or I'm really stressed, blah blah blah. And I notice it more and more the more I'm in tune with me and my body, which has been a journey over the past couple of years, as you know. The more I see it in others as well.
Yeah.
And it's not just that excitement that manifests when something like a new project has happened, or you've got a new idea, or something's going really well, or you've got this ideal client, or you know, you've been asked to go and speak on a stage or something, and you've got that excitement, and you know that that's like a good feeling. But like those constant bad feelings,
Yeah.
when they're happening so much, like in my friend's case, I feel like you feel that's permanent, that that's part of who you are, that's part of how it's supposed to be. And I think in a long roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is like people get comfortable being uncomfortable, and then they don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I notice that a lot. I notice that a lot with
Yeah.
people.
I love how like you talk about how people have normalized a lot of the uncomfortable things, you know, like it's so much of our society is based on normalizing violence, like how the violence towards ourselves, the violence towards others, the violence. Yeah, like when I was in uni and I was in a class, I think one of the things that really impacted the ways in which I understood violence was like, I think one of my professors showed us of like these homeless people sleeping in a tunnel and with a hose directed at them. The Hong Kong sanitary department decided that they wanted to clean up this tunnel in the middle of the winter. But like obviously like water in the middle of the winter was gonna get the tunnel really cold. And she asked what was really violent about this picture. And like it was really like shocking for me when someone said, like, they were all like, you know, people are like, oh, you know, they're spraying water in the tunnel and everything. What was really shocking for me was when someone said, oh, they're homeless people. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've normalized that part of violence as well in some ways. Like for many years, like I thought it was normal to have homeless people, people who did not have homes. Yeah, so like there's so many kinds of violence that we normalize
Yeah, I think you
that
like
just
gave me
isn't
like hit
normal
me right in the
anymore.
feels
So
that
yes, I
like,
love how you brought up
yeah,
your
I think
friend.
people do expect a certain amount of
Yeah,
violence, and like you say, a certain amount of
yeah,
expectation that there will be homeless people. Like there shouldn't be really.
yeah,
Like let's face it, like that's not kind or nice, and it shouldn't be a thing for anybody to have to endure. That
yeah,
is it, isn't it? And it's like as children as well, like when you're feeling your emotions and a caregiver or a parent teacher, somebody goes, we'll just sit down and be quiet, you don't need to cry, or you know, rein it in, you're angry, you know, you've thrown your toys or whatever, you're having a tantrum, and your parents or whoever it is are removing you and disciplining you rather than sort of helping you feel into those emotions.
yeah,
Or like when you're really excited and you're running around, you know, no care about keeping yourself safe because you're a child, and you know, them having to rein it in. I remember, like, just as you were saying, sort of that as well. Like, it came to me that like I would always feel hard done by as a child, whether I actually fully was or not. But I felt it, right? I felt it, and so I would kick off. I would be angered that I thought my brother was getting preferential treatment, and I would be told to, you know, go to my room. Well, obviously I wasn't like 4 or 5, I was a fair bit older, but like go to my room, go and separate myself from people because I can't act in a certain way, in a way that I suppose society deems acceptable, right? That my family deem acceptable. And I think we learn that in loads of different ways from being really young
yeah,
to disassociate from our emotions, or to wind them in, or to even
yeah,
fake them. Like how many times has somebody gone, oh, do you want to go and do this? And inside you've gone, oh God, I really don't want to do that. And then you've gone, yeah, okay, I'd love to.
yeah,
And you think, oh, like this happens, this
Yeah.
is weaved in our daily lives, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
ignoring our feelings or
Yeah.
purposely choosing not to listen to our
Mm.
bodies. um
Yeah.
which yeah, just blows me away. And like you
Yeah.
say, in
Mm-hmm.
society as well, we don't
Mm-hmm.
see
Yeah.
we don't
Mm-hmm.
see what could be. We've just
Mm-hmm.
accepted what is.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And I love how, like, I think you talked about, like, in our coffee chat last 2 weeks ago, you mentioned your son and how, like, being a little different,
Mm.
like, you were like, that's your superpower. Like, like receiving, accepting, loving people as they are
Mm.
instead of expecting them to behave a certain way. Like, I thought that was really magical when you mentioned it 2 weeks ago when I was chatting with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, to kind of answer your question about like how I came here and like why I started being obsessed with emotions. I don't know. I think it started when I don't think I ever told you this, but I started martial art many years ago. It's like 8 years ago ish, I think. But then it was like a like it's a martial art called Aikido.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point in my journey, I started to learn from the teachers about, like, the teachers would always say, like, look within yourself. What are you feeling right now? And I think that's when I started really realizing that, like, oh, there's things going on within me when I'm interacting with other people. Like, there's emotions that's coming up, like fear and like anxiety or like past experiences that's impacting the ways in which I practice my martial arts, the ways in
Mm.
which I practice communication outside of my martial arts as well. So yeah, like, and there's a lot of things that has happened in between that really messed up with my emotions. Like, I was like, oh my goodness, like I feel really heavy. And there's a lot of things going on. Like, I felt like I had a seasonal depression. Um, and yeah, like I think it was really looking within that I started finding the answers of who I want to be and what I want to do, rather than like being like, oh, shut up, I don't want to listen to you, I'll do what I can and like be normal, like so yeah. Yeah. How does that resonate with you? I see you smiling, I'm like, oh, my heart, like
I am.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
smiling
Mm-hmm.
because for so
Yeah.
long I
Mm-hmm.
tried to fit into what I thought was
Yeah.
normal, in air quotes here.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's it. We sit there disregarding what's actually coming up, don't we, for so long. And then that pivotal point, and like you said, you had that sort of those moments where you started listening to yourself and bringing that into your lived
Mm-hmm.
experiences. And that happened
Yeah.
to me too, which is why I'm smiling, because
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I kind of got to the point where
Mm-hmm.
my nan
Mm-hmm.
died. I hit rock bottom. We've spoken about this in brief before. I had depression. My anxiety wasn't great. I had no self-belief. I had low self-confidence. I
Mm-hmm.
was worried about my weight. Just anything I could be stressed and worried about and overwhelmed with, I was. And my fibromyalgia had kicked up 5 notches, and I was in immense
Yeah.
amounts of pain most days,
Yeah.
which I can now see a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
was to do with all this stress and grief and anxiety that I was holding within me. Um, but it all came to like this sort of pivotal point where I was like, oh shit, like I am the lowest I've been before, and I don't see an easy way out. Like I don't like it here. This isn't fun. And it was I had to get real with myself, right? I had to sort of sit and be like, what do I
Yeah.
actually need? And listening
Yeah.
to my body
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
following through with that was really uncomfortable at
Mm-hmm.
first because it was different. It was different. And I think that is that moment when people go, okay, you know what, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to try listening to myself for a change. It is
Mm-hmm.
scary, and it is uncomfortable. It's a different kind of uncomfortable than what we've been living with, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not uncomfortable forever, but
Yeah.
it's that, oh gosh, is this going to work? I've
Yeah.
tried a gazillion other
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
I've tried
Mm-hmm.
ignoring my feelings. I've tried pretending. I've tried doing what this person down the road does. I've tried,
Mhm.
you know, faking it till I make it, or whatever the phrase is, and I
Yeah.
don't feel good.
Mhm.
And it's almost like the last option, isn't it? The last option is, okay, well, let's
Yeah.
listen to ourselves.
Mhm.
And man, I wish it was the first option. I wish we all went, you know what am I really
Yeah.
feeling? But
Yeah.
from
Mhm.
my
Yeah.
experiences and the conversations I've had with
Yeah.
others, it does seem to be
Yeah.
a little bit lower down the
Mm.
list of things to try.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. How powerful it is to like witness you like
Mm.
hold yourself that way. Like say, you know, like this is how I was feeling. These were the emotions I was going through. Some days are still difficult, but I still ask myself, how am I feeling right now? Yeah, like how potent that is. Oh my goodness, like I feel it in my bones. Mm, like there's this thing around like people where it's like, oh, like as a leader, you cannot be vulnerable, you cannot show who you are, your truth, and like you have to seem like, you know, as you're saying, fake it till you make it.
Mm.
Um, but it's like you cannot reveal who you are unless, you know, like, I don't know, like unless you're with the closest people you're with. But like listening to you and like you sharing your journey, like it allows me to connect with you at a more human level, at a more level like, oh, this person is like me, like they go through their own emotions. Yeah. Like I think emotions is a way we connect, we
Mm.
relate to other people, and when we forget that, we forget so much of how we are interdependent with the world, with the
Mm.
people, with the land. Hmm.
Well, we're social creatures, aren't we? We're meant to connect
Yeah.
with others and to share our experiences
Yeah.
and collectively
Mm.
learn. This is how we've stayed alive for so
Yeah.
long, because we were hunting in
Yeah.
tribes and groups,
Mm-hmm.
and you know,
Yeah.
strategically getting food, as it
Mm-hmm.
were, you know, way back when.
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
and I think I think society has, you know, a lot to play in it, in that we're all trying to,
Mm.
or I say we're all, a lot of people try to outshine one
Yeah.
another. And social media especially, you know, people
Mm.
show, they like to show their best bits, they like to show it
Yeah.
filtered, they like
Yeah.
to, you know, and
Mm.
obviously not everybody does this,
Yeah.
but a lot of people will go, oh,
Yeah.
you know what, let's just
Yeah.
take this picture, I'm going to clear the background of
Mm.
clutter, I'm going to make sure my kids are smiling,
Yeah.
I'm going to do this, I'm going to take 100 photos, and then I'm going to post the best one
Mm.
with a nice
Yeah.
caption. Never mind that I've had a terrible day and 5 hours before I was on the floor sobbing. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
not showing that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that distorts
Yeah.
reality for the rest of us.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
I do that. You know,
Yeah.
I used to do
Yeah.
that a lot. I'd be like, right, where is the
Mm.
cleanest part of my room? Where am
Yeah.
I going to take this picture? I am less
Mm.
bothered now.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
used to only take pictures if I had
Mm-hmm.
full makeup on. I don't do that
Yeah.
now. Do you know, like, because I
Mm.
think my calling here, you know, yes, I'm a business alignment coach.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm helping entrepreneurs
Yeah.
with their
Mm.
businesses and hoping that they're going to find
Mm.
more ease and more flow and be more in tune. But
Yeah.
the wider picture is, I want people to be comfortable and
Mm.
confident doing what they
Yeah.
want to do.
Mm.
And that sort of steps away from business.
Yeah.
And that's, if you want to show up on social media as you,
Yeah.
bloody well do it. You know, like, have the confidence show up as you, because other people need to see that.
Mm.
There are so many of us hidden behind full makeup faces and
Yeah.
filters and,
Yeah.
you know, tiny clean corners in their
Mm.
living rooms, wanting to feel accepted with scraped
Yeah.
up hair, no
Yeah.
makeup, with a
Yeah.
messy background, and kids are crying and whatever's going on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because that is us, and that is reality,
Yeah.
and that is
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
real. And we want to show up and say, hey, we've had a shit day. We found the
Yeah.
kids difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We've fluffed up on a
Yeah.
proposal to a client. We've done X, Y, and Z. You know, like we've
Yeah.
just woken up and we don't know what's wrong with us. There's something off,
Yeah.
and we
Mm-hmm.
just want to just express that to people.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
We're not. And I think the thing is, and I'm going off on one here, Mickey,
Yeah.
but you know me. I think
Mm.
when people
Yeah.
do that,
Mm-hmm.
other people think they're doing it for attention and
Yeah.
sympathy, and like, we're not at that point of just acceptance yet
Yeah.
for the people that are doing that.
Mm.
So I almost feel
Yeah.
like if I share something vulnerable, that I have to put a caveat, like, I am not
Yeah.
looking for sympathy,
Yeah.
or like,
Yeah.
I am just sharing my experiences. Do you know, I feel like there's almost like a caveat that needs to go with that, or you need to sort of have your
Yeah.
guard up, because somebody will
Yeah.
go, well, you don't need to post that on social media, or,
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
know, and I see it time and
Yeah.
time again when you get people who are showing up as
Mm-hmm.
themselves, being vulnerable, and then people
Mm-hmm.
vilifying them for something or picking on them for
Mm-hmm.
something else.
Yeah.
Do you know, I see it time and time again in the
Mm-hmm.
comments on Instagram, on
Mm.
Facebook. You know,
Yeah.
somebody's come in, you know, as they are, vulnerable, talking about
Mm.
struggles with X, Y, and Z. Let's say they're having struggles with their partner, and they've been really emotional. And then in the comments you get,
Yeah.
well, if you'd lose weight, blah blah blah, or
Yeah.
if you tried this, da 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 da, and if you'd done this, and what are you
Mm.
coming on here? Do you know what I mean? And it's just like,
Mm.
why can't we just accept that she's come into the space and said what she said?
Mm.
Why do we
Oh
need
my
to fill
goodness.
it with
Mm.
negativity, or do you know? I think it's a big thing. I think it's a big thing that
Yeah.
we're still
Yeah.
so far away from
Yeah.
being able to be fully
Yeah.
vulnerable
Mm.
in person and in
Mm.
the online
Mm.
space.
Mm. 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 I think, like, you know, you were talking about these negative comments, quote unquote negative comments that people make. I wonder if it's also like people are kind of like scared of
Mm-hmm.
seeing that part of themselves. In some ways, they want to control that part so that, you know, like be able to give advice in a way to control the circumstance. Um, yeah, like somehow believe that we can control our emotions or control like our life. Yeah. 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 Like that was something that was coming up for me.
I think as well, it's that scared child within the person doing, you know,
Yeah.
the any negative comments. I
Mm.
think that's
Yeah.
seen negative,
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I think, and I'm going out on a shoestring here, but like, I think
Mm.
they're afraid because they wouldn't be that vulnerable, or they feel,
Yeah.
well, I keep mine close to my chest and nobody knows how I'm struggling, but like, you're getting a free pass to some support here, or some, do you know, and I could be
Yeah.
missing the mark, but I kind of feel like there's a little scared kid somewhere
Yeah.
within that
Yeah.
person going, I wish I could do
Mm.
that with my
Yeah.
problems. I wish I could get support.
Yeah. Of
Um,
course. Mm-hmm.
and that's one of my takes. And I like to
Yeah.
see the nicer
Yeah.
side. I like to look
Yeah.
for, why might this person be being negative, or why might this
Yeah.
person be lashing out, or
Yeah.
why might this person be
Yeah.
acting in that way.
Mm.
And I try and see
Yeah.
what might be going on, instead
Yeah.
of just assuming, oh, they're a bad
Yeah.
person, or do you know what I mean? Which is so easy to do, isn't it? It's so, you know,
Yeah.
and I am guilty of it. I am guilty of it.
Yes.
But we're all a work in progress, aren't we?
Yeah.
As humans, as individuals, we are all navigating this
Mm-hmm.
world as
Mm-hmm.
individuals,
Yeah.
and we don't always get
Yeah.
it right. So
Yeah.
if
Mm.
any listeners listen to this going, yeah,
Mm.
I judge these people,
Mm-hmm.
know that that's okay. We're not perfect. We're not vilifying you guys.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
an
Mm-hmm.
observation.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I wanted to actually share like 2 weeks ago, I think I shared a post on my social media around like how I was feeling. Like I went on vacation, I came back. So while I guide people to live their calling, I also know like how important it is to live mine.
Mm.
Yeah, you know, and like writing that post on social media recently about how like after going on vacation and coming back, I kind of felt misaligned with my work. Like I didn't realize, like before vacation, I was like, oh yeah, this feels really aligned. Like I feel like really great. And I came back and I was like, wait, something feels off. Um, and honestly, I was afraid to admit that I lived in some kind of misalignment myself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, but being able to say that, like, I realized that the misalignment came from like not being in person. Like, most of my work is on Zoom and like online, and that makes me feel really isolated from people. Like, I miss people, like, I miss actually being by them and just witnessing them and being able to offer them tissue when they're crying, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't realize how that was important to me until I went on vacation and came back. And admitting that on a social media post felt really vulnerable for me. Like it just
Mm.
felt like, okay, like, do I seem like the expert that I am meant to be? Like, but putting that out felt really healing as well. Like it was like, hey, there's enough for me, there's enough for other people. Like saying, hey, like I wasn't aligned and I want to call in more alignment. This is how I was feeling and this is my work. Like this is what I want my clients to go through as well, like I guide them through the process of going deeper within themselves to know how they feel, how that aligns. And I need to do that work too. So yeah, like when you're talking about the vulnerability part, and how people show up, it's like, yeah, that came up for me recently too.
Yeah. And I remember that post. I
Yeah.
remember, I think I actually commented
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
But that's it, isn't it? It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
Like, you do the work, or your clients do the work, and it's never
Yeah.
ticked off and done and closed book. It's we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, we're constantly picking up new interests and dropping other ones, and our needs and our wants change all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's that understanding, isn't it, of going, okay, something's shifted, let's explore that, rather than nope, this is what I said I was going to do and this is what I'm going to do. So I think in actual fact, like you say, by being vulnerable as a leader in this space, it shows others that it is a process and it's okay to change things. Because like I feel disjointed otherwise, and it doesn't, going back to the body and the feeling, it doesn't feel right. So I put it out there, this is how I'm niching down, this is how I'm doing this is how I'm stepping into this purpose. And I felt like an immediate relief. At that point, I wasn't bothered about how it would be received, which is what had held me back from so long, how I would be received, how I'd be perceived, and what people might think. And like as a coach as well, like there's this sort of, I hate it because this sort of stigma that we've got our shit nailed down and we're all like perfect and it's so not true. But it's that, oh gosh, I have to show that vulnerability and that change and that pivot and that noticing that something wasn't working for me anymore. But the minute I did that, it was like, okay, I feel better now. Like whatever responses come from this, like it's fine because I feel better. And you know what? I didn't get anybody saying, well, how dare you pivot into this? And and yes, it might not feel like I am a good fit for somebody anymore, but that's okay. Because, if I'm not a good fit for you, then it wouldn't have worked anyway, regardless of how I have pivoted. We either gel as people or we don't. And it doesn't mean you don't have to have a strong dislike for somebody just to realize actually we don't gel. It's perfectly fine. And I think, goodness, the amount of people in this world, we're not all going to get on anyway. We can all be civil, we can all be polite, but my Lord, we cannot all get on. There's just not, it's just, we're all so different, like, so if that pivot really switches you off from me, then that's okay. Like, you don't need to feel guilty. I don't need to feel bad. Like, we just need to move forward in our own way. And that's kind of the stance I took on it. And it's been really interesting to sort of share that, because I've had other people go, oh, you know what? I've been sat on an idea for so long too. And I was worried about XYZ. And oh, I've been sat on this feeling and I've been trying to ignore it, trying to squash it. And it was almost like, in these few instances that I've experienced, that they needed somebody else to go first, if it were, for them to go, oh, okay, you know what, that person did that and they didn't die, nothing bad happened to them, so that gives me courage to go and do my thing. And I think as somebody who also consumes social media as well, and has people that they want to work with and people that they really gel with and things, it is nice to see other people being vulnerable, because we all know, like, deep down, people are not this perfect image all the time, and they don't get it right all the time. Heck, like, stories would be boring if things didn't go wrong, right? Like, if things didn't happen, if people weren't in peril, if somebody didn't come and save, if people didn't grow, and and then I look at really big names in, not just in our industries, but just in the world, like Elon Musk, like, Jeff Bezos, like, big names. And
Yeah.
I think, and obviously this doesn't mean that they get it right,
Mm.
but they're
Mm.
big
Yeah.
money earners, right? They are like some of the
Mm.
most richest people in the world.
Mm.
It's like, how did they
Mm.
get there? They didn't get everything right. They
Yeah.
didn't do all the right things to do that.
Yeah.
Or you think of
Mm.
like a famous, like Beyonce, and
Yeah.
you think, well, she didn't do everything right to get
Mm.
to where she got to. Like, things went wrong, things
Yeah.
didn't feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And so whoever you look up to in whatever
Mm-hmm.
space it is, however that
Yeah.
looks, they don't get it
Yeah.
right, and they
Yeah.
don't always listen to their feelings. And then you're not the only one that's
Mm.
squashing things and
Mm.
holding things back. There are people in every industry, in every
Yeah.
corner of the world, who show you what it is that
Wow.
they want you to
Mm.
see, the good stuff, and they're
Yeah.
getting it right. And
Yeah.
and I was listening to an
Mm.
audiobook yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
by Alex Hermosi. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
forgive me, it's $100 million offers. There's a slightly longer title. I will link it in
Mm.
the show notes. And he
Mm.
was just talking about how he went from basically being bankrupt and struggling to get his gym business off the ground to now making, I think, at the time of the publishing the book, he said 120 million a year, through different things. And he do a lot of charity and a lot of fundraising. And he said that he was documenting his way to hopefully being a billionaire, which was his goal, right? And he said,
Mm.
because these big, the big
Mm-hmm.
names in the industries haven't documented that, they've only shown the best
Yeah.
bits. And he wants to
Mm-hmm.
show others like his raw journey and what
Yeah.
went right for him, what went wrong, how he felt, what he did. And I just thought that notion was wonderful. So maybe you don't resonate
Mm-hmm.
with that end goal. Maybe that's not
Yeah.
something that anyone's interested in there, but maybe just being able to look at somebody's raw journey to whatever it is that you're hopeful to achieve in life.
Mm.
It's nice to see all the parts.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. 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 Like you were mentioning, like, you're talking to your friend and like they were also like, oh yeah, I had this idea for like a long time and like I didn't like do this. It's like, yeah, like when people share their really raw journeys, it's like an inspiration for others to do the same. Mm, mm, yeah. Mm, mm. Oh, like there was something else that was coming up, but I feel like my brain is just like letting my body feel all your like other shares. Hmm. And like I think like there's something else that I wanted to kind of come back to was when you were talking about how humans are social beings.
Mm.
Um they're not just social, but they're like also very interdependent on each other. Like I think that's like social interdependency are like a little bit different, but I think there's a there's a really big emphasis on the social aspect, like all people are very social beings, but not so much on the interdependence. And I think that's because we have been so like broken apart with ourselves, like the relationship to ourselves. Um, and it makes it difficult for us to see how our relationships with ourselves impact our relationships with other people. Like I know you said there were some big names like, Elon Musk and like Jeff Bezos. Like and there's not a lot around how they feel. Like I would love to know more about how they feel,
Yeah.
Like and I feel like as much as I respect like the businesses that have been built, the ones that I really honor and deeply respect are those that also recognize the interdependency of the system, like of the people. Mm. Like it's funny that the Amazon, the company, is also the same name as Amazon, the rainforest. But like the
Mm.
ways in which we understand, yeah, like what I'm thinking more is like how we treat people within organizations. How I've had a family member work for Amazon, so I'm like, like as much as I respect you as a company, I would honor the interdependency, the people, how you treat people as well. And I think that comes back to how we treat ourselves, how we honor
Mm.
ourselves and our body and know how we're feeling. so that we're able to relate to other people. I know this goes slightly on a tangent, like everything, but for me, it's like how we treat other people, how we organize an organization really reflects how we look at ourselves. Yeah, so that's something that was coming up for me when you were talking about this. Like, yes, like I want to be a billionaire with a lot of love for other people as well, with a lot of love for myself and a lot of respect for other people simultaneously. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think
yeah,
that like that loops back
yeah.
to what I was saying before, like when we were talking about
Mm.
the people who have been negative on
Yeah.
social media and maybe not feeling safe in
Yeah.
themselves and not having like that
Mm.
security to be
Yeah.
vulnerable. You know, that could be the same in organizations,
Yeah.
in teams, in in
Yeah.
businesses
Mm-hmm.
where there is a disjoint somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
usually higher up,
Mm-hmm.
that is then being filtered
Yeah.
down into the workforce.
Yeah.
That's sort of running from how they're feeling
Yeah.
and what they know, or what they're not feeling, should I say, and what they know. And do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm.
I like one of my big
Mm.
missions is to help organizations and teams understand more about the different people within their
Yeah.
team,
Yeah.
especially on the neurodivergent
Yeah.
tangent, but also like to know that everybody can watch the same 5-minute
Yeah.
clip of a video and take something different away.
Yeah.
Everybody could read the same page of a book and pull out something
Yeah.
different and feel a different type of way,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And when they're looking at something
Mm.
to do with the business
Yeah.
or whatever, they're all going to see something different
Yeah.
or have an idea that's
Yeah.
different. And I think a lot of the time
Mm.
when you've got
Mm.
businesses
Yeah.
with a sort of a hierarchy, if you
Mm.
will,
Yeah.
it's very much the manager is the one that gets the final say. The
Yeah.
manager's idea is the one
Yeah.
everybody backs. And it's like, well, no, actually somebody else might have a better idea
Yeah.
and or a feeling that is valid that
Yeah.
might bring a different
Yeah.
perspective, and it needs to be
Mm.
heard.
Yeah.
And I think as managers or
Yeah.
in people in a position of power in the
Yeah.
workplace need to be able to take that on board and
Yeah.
be confident and secure in
Yeah.
themselves
Mm-hmm.
that perhaps their idea isn't the
Mm-hmm.
best idea.
Yeah.
Like I have read of instances where there's been
Yeah.
other ideas that have probably would have worked
Yeah.
better, but the manager or the person in charge has been so steadfast that
Yeah.
their idea is the idea they're taking
Yeah.
forwards and they're discounting everybody else's, and
Mm. Yeah.
it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then it's a blame then,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's a blame game. Well,
Yeah.
you didn't do this and this wasn't this and
Ooh,
blah blah
yeah.
blah.
Yeah.
And this is, I know we are off on a tangent right now, but I think it needs to be spoken about.
Yeah.
It needs to be spoken
Yeah.
about.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of my missions,
Yeah.
especially, and I don't know about you, is to help educate people in the workforce,
Yeah.
particularly higher up,
Mm.
about the differences that each
Yeah.
individual brings
Yeah.
to the workforce, and that they're not just a number, they're not just a statistic, they're not just a person in front of a screen doing a job. Like, let them be heard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. And you know what I also really love is like how like we approach things differently. Like I love how you're like, you want the individuals, like you want them to recognize them as individuals and then they have these great ideas and everything. And like also the neurodiversity part, like people are different and like they have different ideas and like because of their backgrounds. And like for me it's like the emotions part. It's like, oh, what do we feel within that impacts ourselves and our decision making? Like there's so much like prioritization around like logic and reasoning that doesn't make sense. It's very empty for me. It's like, oh, women are so emotional. It's like, yes, men are so emotional. Like it's just like like it's like whether
Yeah.
like one is crying or one is like really angry, like the ways in which we understand emotions. um yeah, and like I love how different our approach is, and it just shows how much abundance there is. Like, like coming back again, I love the circling back too. Like, how people feel like other people are sharing their like vulnerabilities and they can't share how they're feeling, but it's like there's this perceived scarcity around how people receive us or love us. Like if they love on this person, they can't love us. Like it's so much scarcity in this world. Like there's so much love. Like we can like it can be abundant. Like work can be abundant, love can be abundant, money is abundant. Like remembering these feelings. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. And I think
Mm.
like with that
Yeah.
scarcity in mind,
Mm.
I just want to sort of touch
Yeah.
back a lot of circling back around
Yeah.
on, you know, men have so many emotions, and I think
Yeah.
society has
Yeah.
dampened it.
Yeah.
Do you know, like the typical, and air quotes here, feminine
Yeah.
emotions, sort of like,
Yeah.
do you know, sadness,
Yeah.
overwhelm, fear, like they've been taught to squash that,
Yeah.
and they're only allowed to feel anger
Yeah.
and, do you know, happiness
Yeah.
and a very limited range.
Yeah.
And it's the same with women. If women start being angry or assertive,
Yeah.
we're suddenly bitches, or do you know what I mean? Like there seems to be a societal
Yeah.
barrier
Yeah.
about what emotions are acceptable.
Yeah.
And again, I'm using air quotes. And what are not. And I think, you know what, actually, we're all perfectly allowed to feel all their emotions. And I think this is one of the things, especially as a mother with two girls and a boy, is sort of helping them navigate those emotions and not shrinking them and pushing them into a mold and making them fit. And, do you know, it is still really hard because then they go out into school and into society and then, do you know, like my boy is nearly 12 and he doesn't like to cry in front of me anymore. And I think, gosh, that is so damaging to people. And we have done our best to like curb that, if you will. And I even remember, and this is slightly off tangent, but I'm going to bring it anyway. He used to love the color pink. He used to adore it. And he had these gorgeous pink t-shirts with dinosaurs on. One was a hot pink and one was like a salmon color. And he went into nursery. This is like 3 or 4 years old. And some boy told him that boys don't wear pink and pink is a girl's color. And he came home from nursery like, I don't like this top anymore.
Oh my God.
And there was nothing that, you know, I couldn't undo that damage and that opinion that somebody else had put on him to wear the pink shirt. And he has never worn a pink shirt since, unfortunately. And I just think, you know, these things are happening and they can be a little snapshot in somebody's day. That was probably a 10-minute interaction at best. I mean, he's 3 or 4 years old at this point, so maybe a 2-minute interaction at best. And that has molded him moving forwards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm hopeful one day he will revert back to pink t-shirts. But, you know, and my husband does this thing where he goes out of his way to pick like the pink counter in a game. And my husband will go, I'm the pink one. And my husband's got some pink shirts.
So
and we'll like do,
Yeah.
oh, my life. And my husband gets his nails painted by the girls and he always opts for pink. And it's kind of just a subliminal message to my son that like, it's okay. We can like pink. Do you know what I mean? But it just brings me back to that, like, okay, if you're presenting as male, this is how you're supposed to act. This is the feelings. These are the colours you like. These are the colours you don't like. This is the outfit you wear. And I just think, you know, fuck it. Can we all just not be people and be who we want to be and feel how we want to feel and show up in the world how we want to show up. We want to wear the dress. We want to wear the pink. We want to wear the, you know, my nearly 10-year-old daughter is like favoring gothic outfits, black, grungy. And, you know, I've had some people go, ooh, are you not trying to like curb that? I'm like, no, if that's how she wants to present herself to the world, then I'm all for it. Do you know, I will spend hours scrolling looking for this checkered skirt that she wants online. Because I want her to feel accepted as she is. And I know we are slightly broadening the discussion, but it is that though, isn't it? It is that. It is that. It goes deeper than what shirt you wear and how you dress in the world, and it goes deeper to the feelings and how you show up. But I also think as well. Have you ever noticed that how people can act differently in front of different people as well? So like we're changing, we're morphing ourselves to fit what that person prefers or what that person expects.
That's true.
And I'm doing that less now that I'm more aware of it. But like, so my nan, she's 90. God love her. She is awesome. She's my last grandparent and I cherish her very deeply. She is of a generation where women don't swear. So, and I swear quite a bit. So I have to like purposely, consciously mold my choices of
Mm.
words so that I don't
Mm.
upset her.
Yeah.
And part of that is a respect
Yeah.
thing. But I do notice that I mold myself to fit what she, I suppose not what she expects, but what she is used to.
Yeah. 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 I realize, yeah, that I do that too. I mold myself in different people's presence. I use a different voice. I usually use this voice when I talk to people. Um, but there's also like when I'm really like, oh, like comfortable and everything, I'm like, oh, a higher voice, you know, like sometimes like when I'm like about to sleep and I'm really exhausted and I suddenly sound like a little girl, you know, like but using that voice and being consciously aware of how and why I use that voice.
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, but like, oh, so much. Like, I love how you like talk about like, but like before, like actually historically, pink was a boy's color before World War II. And then like it shifted after World War II, I think is like what I've heard
Oh,
before.
interesting.
Yes, correct me if I'm wrong. If someone in the audience is like, no, that's not right. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
you let us know.
yes. But yeah, so like whether or not, yeah, and I love pink. Like I used to really hate pink. Like I was like, oh my god, like that makes me so feminine and everything. And nowadays I'm
Mm.
coming back to it. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Like I love like still my favorite color is like green, but you know, like being able to receive ourselves and like it's not even just colors, but like I especially worked with women, no? Like most of my leaders, like most of the people I continue to work with and the most of the people who I've worked with are women. And a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like what women are meant to feel are like, oh, like compassion and caring and love and like kind and nurturing and nourishing, and like not every woman is like that. You know,
Yeah,
yes, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So coming back to that as well, like I love how you like let your daughter choose like gothic clothing, like you know, like I love how
yeah.
you receive them with love for who they are and where they're at. We can't control what people like, you know, like can accept, but as they grow older I'm
Mm.
sure they would come back to like as your son would come back to pink, as your like, you know, as your other kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
hopeful. Do you know? I
Yeah.
want to just keep that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
availability for
Yeah.
him to go. You know what?
Mm.
It's okay. I think,
Mm.
especially as
Yeah.
children and at that sort of age, like it
Yeah.
is, you're very
Yeah.
impressionable, and from the minute you
Mm.
start socializing with other children,
Mm-hmm.
you want to fit in,
Yeah.
you want to
Mm.
belong, and I think until we're adults, it's difficult
Mm-hmm.
to go,
Yeah.
well, I'm still going to like pink,
Yeah.
but I still fit in.
Yeah.
Do you know? I
Yeah.
don't have to tick every
Yeah.
single box to
Mm-hmm.
be
Yeah.
accepted. And I think that's also difficult for the opposite child who's
Oh yeah.
saying don't wear
Yeah.
pink, to know that they don't need
Yeah.
to fit all of your boxes
Yeah.
either.
Mm.
And I like to think most adults realize this as they grow up, and they're not just going around going, well, I can't be
Yeah.
friends with you
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
um but yeah, I think
Mm.
I used to repel pink as
Yeah.
well, because I was like, well,
Mm.
I'm not a passive,
Yeah.
woman,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to
Mm.
like pink
Yeah.
because you tell me to like
Yeah.
pink, and
Mhm.
and this, that, and the
Mm.
other. But
Mhm.
and when my
Yeah.
first daughter was on the way,
Yeah.
I told everybody that wanted to buy a gift, do not buy pink. Please do not buy a pink. I will not be putting her in pink. Da, 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 da. I mean,
Yeah.
I've softened now.
Yeah.
Like, if the
Mhm.
kids want to wear
Yeah.
pink, the kids can wear pink. But
Yeah.
at that time, I was so like
Yeah.
aware that I
Mhm.
didn't want to fit into society's
Yeah.
expectations. I think
Yeah.
even then,
Yeah.
like 13 years
Yeah.
ago, it was, no, you're not placing me in that
Yeah.
box. I will go into that box willingly, but you are not forcing me in it. So because of that, I'm now stepping away from that box, and I am like,
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
and then my
Mm.
daughter's favorite color was
Yeah.
pink, so that kind of shafted me.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
oh, I just love it. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
the range of
Yeah.
topics we have covered in this short time together has
I
been
know. I
insane.
know. I know.
Um,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
before we wrap it up,
Yeah.
I would really love
Mhm.
for you
Yeah.
to let my audience know
Mhm.
anything that you're
Mhm.
available for,
Yeah.
anything you're working on,
Mm.
anywhere they can find
Yeah.
you.
Mm. I'm still opening up my one-on-one guidance right now for you to live your calling. If you identify as a leader, if you're looking to, mm, so weird to use if, but yes. If you're looking to look within yourself for the answers that you're looking for, to embody who you're destined to be, rather than pivoting again and again to places where you're actually not desiring to be. So, connecting you with emotions, aligning them so that you can become who you are called to be. So that's that. And I'm on Instagram at Mickey Heals, MIKIHEALS. And you can subscribe for my newsletter in my bio.
Awesome.
Yes.
And I will make sure that those links are in the show notes as well.
Thank you.
So nobody's scrolling things down and trying to remember. I know how difficult that is when you listen to a podcast. So you're like, oh man, I need the link. So I will put those in the show notes.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we wrap up today, Mickey?
I think I wanted to touch on like the pivoting part that you said. You were like, oh, I pivoted into this. Like, I really love that you pivoted into your calling, like more so closer to your calling. But pivoting doesn't necessarily mean that you're walking into your calling, or if you're embracing your calling. Like, yeah, I feel like the term pivoting is used a little bit, like a lot, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Yeah.
It applies to like a change in strategy as well, doesn't it? A change in approach, a change in
So
making things fit.
Yeah. So I loved how you used it.
I think
go on. Sorry.
I think for so long people pivot to make things fit.
Yeah.
Not necessarily what they need, but what they think might be right. So I'm hopeful that because it's been something I've sat on for such a long time, that I've embraced now. That it isn't one of those. It feels really good. So I think it's the right kind of pivot.
Yes. I know. Yeah, I was like, all right. Yes. And that's that. I just wanted to say thank you, Sarah, for hosting this space, holding this space. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. And that was the wonderful Mickey. I absolutely loved editing that podcast and listening to all the many tangents and the different things that we brought up together about vulnerability, about our feelings and the validity that we need to feel in order to live, as human beings, not even as leaders, not even as entrepreneurs, but as human beings. We need to be able to feel into what's going on. We need to be able to release any emotion that's no longer serving us, and we need to be able to step into our calling. So I hope you enjoyed that as much as me and Mickey enjoyed chatting. And as mentioned before, you can find all the relevant links in the show notes, including Mickey's newsletter and Instagram handle. Next episode is our final episode of season 1. It's a short one. It's just me, and I'm going to be going over what's next, what's happening in season 2, how you can work with me, and my 5 top favourite episodes of this season. So I would love for you to tune in, and I will see you then. Take care.